Stop the compressions right now. You don't know what you're doing. Who let him in here? Somebody get security.
The emergency room of Street Jude's was chaos. Alarms shrieked. Nurses ran. Code blue. Trauma Bay 3. Male, 45, massive myocardial infarction. In the center of the storm stood Dr. Richard Sterling, the chief of surgery. He wasn't frantic. He was annoyed. He was supposed to be at a fundraiser gala, and he was dressed in a tuxedo under his open white coat. A news crew who had been interviewing him before the code was still filming from the corner. Sterling looked at the monitor showing the patient's chaotic heart rhythm, ventricular fibrillation. All right, calm down. Sterling yelled over the noise, checking his reflection in the glass cabinet. It's just a standard VFib. Get the paddles. Charge to 120 joules. Nurse Vivian looked at the monitor, terrified. Doctor, he's obese. 120 isn't enough. Protocol says 200 for his weight. I'm the chief of surgery, Vivian. Sterling snapped, flashing a smile for the camera crew. I think I know how to shock a heart. Charge to 120. Clear. Sterling grabbed the paddles. In the corner of the room, unnoticed by anyone, was Elias. The five-year-old janitor was on his knees, wearing his grey jumpsuit and thick glasses, mopping up a pool of blood near the crash cart. Elias looked at the monitor. He looked at the size of the patient. Dr. Sterling is wrong. 120 joules will do nothing. The heart will stop completely. Sterling held the paddles over the patient's chest. Everybody clear. Shocking in 3, 2. Sterling looked away for a split second to wink at the camera reporter. In that second, Elias reached up from the floor. His hand moved faster than a striking cobra. He reached the defibrillator machine and flipped the voltage knob all the way to the right. 200 joules. Elias pulled his hand back instantly and resumed scrubbing the floor. No one saw him move. 1, shock, Sterling yelled, pressing the buttons. Thump. The patient's body jolted violently on the table. Silence fell over the room. Everyone stared at the monitor, a flat line. Then, beep. Then another. Beep, beep, beep. It settled into a normal rhythm. Sinus rhythm restored, Vivian breathed, relieved. Sterling looked at the monitor, surprised it worked, then immediately puffed out his chest. He turned to the camera crew. And that, ladies and gentlemen, Sterling smiled smoothly, is how you save a life before dinner. It's all about precision. 120 joules, exactly as planned. Sterling tossed the paddles to Vivian. He stepped back, directly onto Elias's wet mop. Gah! Sterling slipped, nearly falling. He caught himself on a tray table, knocking instruments everywhere. His cool demeanor vanished. He turned his rage on the man on the floor. You! Sterling screamed, pointing at Elias. Are you an idiot? Why are you mopping here during a code? Elias stood up slowly, clutching his mop bucket. He kept his eyes down. There was blood, Doctor. Safety hazard. You are the safety hazard. Sterling barked, dusting off his expensive tuxedo. Look at this mess. Get out of here. If I see you in my ER again tonight, you're fired. Go clean the roof or something. Elias bowed his head. Yes, Dr. Sterling. Elias turned and shuffled out of the trauma bay, pushing his bucket. As he left, he made brief eye contact with Vivian. Vivian looked at the defibrillator machine. She saw the dial was set to 200. She looked back at Sterling, who was bragging to the cameras. Then she looked at the retreating back of the janitor. Sterling didn't set that dial, she realized with a chill. 20 minutes later, the wind howled across the dark helipad on the hospital roof. Nurse Vivian sat on a ventilation crate, shivering, crying over her open textbook. The stress of the code blue and her upcoming exams was too much. I can't do it, she whispered. I'm going to fail. She was crying, wiping a tear that fell onto the page. Vascular anatomy. It's impossible. I'm going to fail the boards. You are looking at the tree, Miss Vivian. You must look at the forest. Vivian jumped. She turned around to see a figure standing in the shadows of the access door. It was Elias, the hospital janitor. He held a broom in one hand and a trash bag in the other. He was an invisible man, 55, grey-haired, with thick glasses and a heavy accent that spoke of a land far away. Elias, Vivian sighed, her heart racing. You scared me. My apologies. Elias stepped forward. He looked at the book. The Circle of Willis. It is intimidating, yes? But it is just a roundabout, like the traffic in the city. Vivian laughed bitterly. It's a bit more complicated than traffic, Elias. Elias set the broom down. He walked over and looked at the diagram. His eyes, usually cast downward in submission, suddenly sharpened. No, Elias said softly. It is simple. The blood wants to go home to the brain, if the internal carotid is blocked here. Then the anterior communicating artery opens the gate. It is a fail-safe. Nature does not like dead ends. He picked up a piece of chalk left by the maintenance crew. He knelt on the concrete roof. Watch. For the next 20 minutes, the janitor didn't clean. He taught. He drew the entire cardiovascular system on the roof tiles. He didn't just name the parts, he explained why they existed. He spoke of pressure gradients and flow dynamics with the ease of a man who had spent 30 years inside the human chest. When he stood up, dusting the chalk from his grey jumpsuit, Vivian was staring at him with her mouth open. Elias, she whispered, you're not a janitor. That was a doctoral-level lecture. Who are you? Elias stiffened. The light left his eyes, replaced by fear. He grabbed his broom. I am just a man who reads, Miss Vivian, he lied, his voice trembling. Please, you must not tell anyone. I have a wife and 2 daughters back home. I send them every dollar I make. If I lose this job, they starve. Vivian looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the tragedy behind the glasses. She nodded slowly. Your secret is safe with me, Elias. Thank you. She reached out and took his hand, squeezing it gratefully. Elias offered a shy, humble smile and turned to leave. But they weren't alone. In the darkness of the stairwell, the heavy steel door was cracked open an inch. Dr. Richard Sterling stood there. The golden boy of Street. Jude's tall, wealthy, and the newly appointed chief of surgery watched the scene with burning eyes. He had been pursuing Vivian for months. He had sent flowers. He had offered her promotions. He had flashed his Rolex and his sports car keys, and she had politely declined every time. Now, he watched her holding hands with the janitor, the immigrant, the nobody. Sterling's grip on the door handle tightened until his knuckles turned white. Trash, Sterling hissed to himself. Filthy trash. 3 months later, the hostility in the corridors of Street Jude's was palpable. Elias pushed his mop bucket through the main lobby. He kept his head down, but he could feel the eyes on him. Hey, you! Elias stopped. Dr. Sterling was standing by the reception desk, surrounded by a group of young interns. He wanted an audience. Yes, Dr. Sterling? Elias asked, bowing his head. My prescription pad is missing, Sterling announced, his voice loud enough for the patients to hear. I left it on the counter 5 minutes ago. You're the only one who has been cleaning this area. The lobby went quiet. I have not seen it, Doctor, Elias said softly. Don't lie to me. Sterling stepped closer, invading Elias's personal space. I know your type. You steal small things. Pens. Pads. Maybe drugs next. Empty your pockets. Doctor, please, Elias whispered. I am working. Empty them, Sterling shouted. Elias slowly reached into his pockets. He pulled out a crumpled handkerchief, a set of keys, and a small, worn photograph. Sterling snatched the photo. He held it up. It showed a beautiful woman and 2 smiling teenage girls standing in front of a modest house in a sun-drenched country. Cute, Sterling sneered. Is this who you're stealing for? Do they know their father is a thief? Or do you lie to them too? Elias's jaw tightened. A flash of dangerous anger flickered in his eyes, and for a second Elias wanted to tell him, You hold that photo like it is trash, Richard, but that woman is the reason I am alive. That country you mock? I was the Surgeon General there. I stood on the floor of the Parliament and presented the evidence. The President was stealing the foreign medical aid to build palaces while the children died of malaria. They burned my clinic. They put a price on my head. I scrub your floors so that those 2 girls in the photo do not pay for my bravery. He wished he could say it to his face, but he is just a no-one in a no-man's lands. Give it back, Elias said. His voice was low. It wasn't a request. Sterling blinked, surprised by the sudden change in tone. Dr. Sterling, a sharp voice cut in. Nurse Vivian marched across the lobby. She walked straight up to Sterling and snatched the photo from his hand, handing it gently back to Elias. "I found your prescription pad, doctor," Vivian said coldly. "It was in the doctor's lounge. Where you left it." She held up the pad. The intern snickered. Sterling's face turned a violent shade of red. "You're lucky, Janitor," Sterling spat, adjusting his tie. "One of these days, she won't be here to save you, and I will enjoy watching you get deported." He stormed off toward the elevators. "I am sorry, Elias," Vivian whispered. "He is a small man with a big title." "He is dangerous," Elias replied, tucking the photo over his heart. "Ego is the most dangerous disease in a hospital, Miss Vivian. And he has a terminal case." The chaos started at 2 p.m. It began with a rumble that shook the coffee in Elias's cup in the break room. The windows rattled. Then came the sirens. Not the usual ambulance wail, but the sharp, aggressive chirps of police escorts. Hundreds of them. The red phone at the nurse's station, a direct line to Federal Dispatch, began to ring. Vivian picked it up. She listened for 2 seconds, and her face went ghost white. She slammed the phone down and hit the All Call button. Code Black. Trauma 1. Clear the hallways, now. The double doors of the emergency room burst open. It wasn't paramedics. It was the Secret Service. Men in black suits with earpieces and assault rifles swarmed the lobby. They shoved gurneys aside. They pushed patients against the wall. "Everyone down, hands where we can see them," the lead agent screamed. Elias stood by the mop closet, freezing. He raised his hands. Through the doors came a gurney, surrounded by agents. On it lay a man in a torn suit. His shirt was soaked in blood. His face was grey, but Elias recognized him instantly from the news. President Arthur Hayes. He had been campaigning in the neighboring town. What happened? Dr. Sterling ran into the room, breathless. He saw the president and stopped dead. His eyes went wide, not with concern, but with terror. "Sniper fire," a Secret Service agent shouted. "One round to the chest. We couldn't clear him for the helicopter. He's crashing. BP is 60/30. He's drowning in his own blood." Sterling approached the gurney. He looked at the wound. It was high on the chest, near the clavicle. Sterling's internal monologue, "That's the subclavian artery, or maybe the aortic arch. If I open him up, and he dies on the table, my career is over. I'll be the doctor who killed the president. I can't do this. I can't fix this. We need to stabilize him and transfer him." Sterling stammered, backing away. "Get a medevac to Walter Reed. We aren't equipped for this." "He won't make the flight," the agent screamed. "He has minutes. You have to operate now." I can't." Sterling was hyperventilating. From the corner of the room, Elias watched. His eyes scanned the monitors. The heart rate is climbing. The neck veins are distended. It is a tension pneumothorax with a vascular tear. Sterling is stalling. If they wait another 2 minutes, the president's heart will stop. Elias looked at Vivian. She was standing by the crash cart, looking at Sterling with horror. She realized he was cowarding out. She looked at Elias. It was a silent conversation. "He's going to die. I know. Do something." Elias gripped his mop handle. He looked at the Secret Service agents with their fingers on the triggers. He looked at the dying leader of the free world. And he looked at the arrogant doctor who wanted to deport him. Elias dropped the mop. The clatter echoed through the silent room. "Get out of the way," Elias said. It wasn't the voice of a janitor. It was the voice of a surgeon general. He stepped into the trauma circle. "Get back," a Secret Service agent yelled, aiming his rifle at Elias's head. "Identify yourself." Elias didn't stop. He walked straight toward the man with the gun. "My name is Elias," he said calmly. "And if you pull that trigger, the president dies. If you let Dr. Sterling operate, the president dies. But if you give me a scalpel, I might save him. So the only chance of survival of Mr. President lies in whichever option you pick." The room went dead silent. Sterling laughed, a high-pitched, hysterical sound. "Him! Are you joking? He's the janitor. He cleans the toilets. Shoot him. He's probably the assassin. The agent looked at the janitor in the grey jumpsuit. Then he looked at the terrified chief of surgery in the Italian suit. Then the doors opened again. A woman walked in. She had blood on her dress. The First Lady. She looked at Sterling, shaking in his boots. Then she looked at Elias, standing calm in the face of a rifle. "Who are you?" The First Lady whispered. Elias looked her in the eye. "I am the only man in this room who knows where the bullet is," Elias said. The silence in Trauma Bay 1 was louder than the sirens outside. 3 Secret Service agents had their MP5 submachine guns trained on Elias's chest. The laser sights danced on his grey janitor's jumpsuit, 3 red dots converging over his heart. Dr. Sterling stood behind the gurney, his face slick with sweat. He pointed a shaking finger at Elias. "Shoot him!" Sterling screamed, his voice cracking. "He's crazy. He's a foreign national. He's probably the backup shooter sent to finish the job." "Stay back," the lead agent barked, his finger tightening on the trigger. "Sir, get on the ground, now." Elias didn't move. He didn't raise his hands. He didn't look at the guns. He looked past the agents, locking eyes with the First Lady, Margaret Hayes. She was a woman known for her steel composure, but right now she was watching her husband drown in his own blood. "Ma'am," Elias said, his voice calm amidst the screaming. "Look at the monitor. His heart rate is 140. His blood pressure is dropping. The bullet didn't hit the heart directly. If it had, he would be dead already." "Shut up, janitor," Dr. Sterling yelled. "You don't know what you're talking about." Elias ignored him. He took a step forward. The agents tensed. "It is a pericardial tamponade," Elias continued, speaking only to the First Lady. "The sac around the heart is filling with blood. It is squeezing the heart muscle. It cannot pump." "Doctor." Sterling wants to transfer him because he is afraid to open the chest. He knows that if he cuts the pericardium and the pressure releases too fast, the heart will stop. The First Lady looked at Dr. Sterling. "Is that true?" Dr. Sterling stammered, "Aye. It's a complex procedure. We don't have the right equipment. The risk of cardiac arrest is 100% if you do nothing," Elias cut in. "He has 2 minutes, ma'am, maybe 3. Then the heart stops, and no hospital in the world can bring him back." The lead agent looked at Sterling. "Doctor, can you stabilize him for transport?" Dr. Sterling looked at the monitor. The alarms were blaring. Beep, beep. The rhythm was erratic. Sterling's internal monologue. "If I operate and he dies, I'm the villain. If I transfer him and he dies in the helicopter, it's the trauma's fault. I have to transfer him. I have to protect my record. We have to move him," Sterling lied. "Get the chopper." "No." Vivian stepped forward. The young nurse walked into the center of the standoff. She was shaking, but she stood next to Elias. "Vivian, get back," Dr. Sterling snapped. "You're fired." "You can fire me later," Vivian said, her voice trembling but clear. She looked at the First Lady. "Mrs. Hayes, I have worked with Dr. Sterling for 2 years. He is a politician, not a trauma surgeon. He is scared." She put a hand on Elias's shoulder. The grey fabric of his jumpsuit was rough under her fingers. "But this man," Vivian said, "I have seen him diagnose cases that the entire department missed. I don't know who he was before he came here, but I know he is the best doctor in this room." "He cleans the toilets," Sterling shrieked. "Are you insane?" Vivian looked the lead agent in the eye. "If he touches the president and fails, you can arrest me. You can charge me as an accomplice. I will put my life on the line for him." The room hung in the balance. The First Lady looked at Sterling, who was wiping sweat from his forehead, terrified. Then she looked at Elias, who stood still as a statue, waiting. "Agent," the First Lady said, "lower your weapon." "Ma'am, protocol dictates." "I am the protocol," she said sharply. "My husband is dying. The doctor is useless. Let the janitor work." "Clear the room," Elias barked. The command shattered the paralysis. The authority in his voice was absolute. "You heard him," Vivian shouted at the frozen nurses. "Get a thoracotomy tray. I need 4 units of O negative. Get the crash cart. Elias walked to the scrub sink. He didn't run. He moved with efficient, purposeful speed. He stripped off the grey jumpsuit. Underneath, he wore a faded t-shirt and cheap trousers. He grabbed a set of blue scrubs from the rack. Sterling followed him to the sink, blocking his path. "You can't do this," Sterling hissed, his face inches from Elias. "I won't let you turn my OR into a circus. I will have the medical board strip this hospital of its license. You are practicing without a license. You are a criminal." Elias turned on the water. He began to scrub his hands, the soap foaming up his arms. "Dr. Sterling," Elias said, not looking at him. "In my country, I performed surgery in a bunker while mortar shells fell on the roof. I operated with a flashlight held between my teeth. Do you think I care about your medical board?" He rinsed his hands. He turned and looked at Sterling. The look was terrifying. It was the look of a predator dismissing a nuisance. "Get out of my oar. Or pick up a suction tip and make yourself useful. But do not speak again." Sterling opened his mouth to argue, but 2 Secret Service agents stepped up behind him. "Step aside, doctor," the agent said. Sterling backed away, humiliated. He retreated to the corner of the room, pulling out his phone. He started recording. "I'll get it all on tape," Sterling thought. "When the president dies, I'll have proof the janitor killed him. I'll be the witness." Elias walked into the sterile field. Vivian was waiting with a gown and gloves. She helped him into them. For the first time in 5 years, Elias was not wearing grey. He was wearing blue. He snapped the latex gloves. He looked down at the president. "Scalpel," Elias said. Scene 3. The incision. "Scalpel," Vivian repeated, slapping the number 10 blade into his hand. Elias didn't hesitate. He placed the blade on the president's chest, just below the left nipple, in the 5th intercostal space. He cut. Blood welled up, dark and angry. "Suction," Elias ordered. A nervous resident stepped in with the suction tip. "Retractor," Elias said. He inserted the metal spreader between the ribs. He cranked it open. Click, click, click. The ribs separated, exposing the beating heart inside the chest cavity. It was a mess. The pericardium, the sac surrounding the heart, was swollen and purple, pulsing violently. It looked like a balloon ready to burst. "It's a tamponade," Elias confirmed. "The heart is strangling. Pressure is 50/30, the anesthesiologist shouted. "He's coding." "I have to release the pressure," Elias said. "Pickups." Vivian handed him the forceps. Elias reached in. This was the moment Sterling had feared. If he nicked the heart muscle, it was over. If he released the pressure too fast, the shock would kill him. Elias's hand was steady. He lifted the pericardial sac. He made a tiny, precise nick. Whoosh! Old, dark blood sprayed out of the chest, hitting Elias's mask. "Suction! Clear the field!" Elias shouted. The monitor beeped faster. The heart, suddenly free from the crushing pressure, began to expand. "BP is rising," the anesthesiologist yelled. 80/50, 90/60. A collective sigh went through the room. The First Lady sobbed into her hands. But Elias didn't relax. He stared into the chest cavity. "No," Elias whispered. "What?" Vivian asked. "The pressure is down. He's stabilizing." "The blood," Elias pointed. "It is bright red now, fresh." He looked at the monitor. The pressure stopped rising and started falling again. "There is a secondary bleeder," Elias said, his voice grim. "The bullet didn't just nick the pericardium. It grazed the pulmonary artery. He is bleeding out internally. We can't see it." The resident panicked, looking into the pool of blood in the chest. "There's too much blood." Sterling stepped forward from the corner, holding his phone. "He's dead," Sterling shouted triumphantly. "I told you, you can't find a pulmonary tear in this mess. You have to clamp the aorta and stop the heart to find it. He'll be brain dead in 2 minutes." "Shut up!" Vivian screamed. Elias closed his eyes for a second. The visual field was useless. The blood was filling the chest faster than they could suction it. He couldn't see the tear. If he tried to clamp blindly, he could crush the phrenic nerve, paralyzing the diaphragm, or the bronchus. He had to do it by feel. "Turn off the suction," Elias ordered. "What?" Sterling laughed. "You're drowning him." "Turn it off," Elias barked. "The noise. I need silence." The resident obeyed. The loud gurgling of the suction machine died. The only sound was the erratic beeping of the monitor. Elias plunged his gloved hand deep into the president's chest, past the wrist. The blood was warm and slick. He closed his eyes. He visualized the anatomy. The roadmap he had drawn on the roof for Vivian. The heart is here. The aorta is here. The pulmonary trunk curves back. He felt the flow of blood against his fingertips. It was like reading Braille in a hurricane. He felt the turbulent jet of blood shooting from the tear. "I feel it," Elias whispered. "Posterior aspect of the main pulmonary artery." "You can't suture that blind," Sterling yelled. "You'll sew the artery shut." "Vivian," Elias said calmly, his eyes still closed. "Give me a 4-0 proline." "On a vascular clamp." "Elias," Vivian hesitated. "If you miss." "I will not miss." She handed him the clamp. Elias, with his hand submerged in the chest of the President of the United States, maneuvered the needle. He couldn't see the tip. He couldn't see the hole. He was guided only by 30 years of experience and the sensation of blood flow on his skin. He turned his wrist. Click. He drove the needle through the tissue. He felt the resistance. He looped the suture. He tied the knot. One-handed, blind. He pulled his hand back slightly. "Suction," Elias whispered. The machine roared back to life. The blood drained away. They all leaned in to look. The pulmonary artery was exposed. A single, perfect stitch sat right over the tear. The bleeding had stopped completely. The room was silent. Even the Secret Service agents were staring, mouths open. "BP is 110/70, the anesthesiologist said, his voice filled with awe. "Sinus rhythm. He's stable." Elias opened his eyes. He looked at Sterling. "The patient is ready for closure, doctor," Elias said, "unless you would like to transfer him now." Sterling dropped his phone. It clattered to the floor. The First Lady walked up to the operating table. She reached out and touched Elias's bloody, gloved hand. "Thank you," she wept. "Thank you." Elias nodded respectfully. "He is a strong man. He will live." He backed away from the table. He stripped off the bloody gown and gloves. He turned to leave. "Where are you going?" Vivian asked, smiling through her tears. Elias picked up his grey jumpsuit from the corner. "My shift is not over, Miss Vivian," Elias said. "The lobby is still dirty." He walked out of the operating room, leaving a room full of stunned experts staring at the back of a janitor. The hallway outside Trauma 1 was a circus. The heavy double doors were guarded by 6 Marines in full tactical gear. Beyond them, the hospital lobby had been transformed into a makeshift press briefing room. Cable news vans clogged the ambulance bay. Reporters shouted over each other, hungry for a headline. Dr. Richard Sterling stood in the staff washroom, splashing cold water on his face. He looked at himself in the mirror. He looked pale, shaken, and small. "I almost killed him," the voice in his head whispered. I froze. He gripped the porcelain sink. He thought of the janitor, the grey ghost who had stepped in and done the impossible. "If this gets out," Sterling thought, "I am finished. The board will fire me, the medical commission will strip my license, I'll be the laughingstock of the medical world." He straightened his tie, he slicked back his hair, he looked at his reflection again. "No," Sterling whispered. "History is written by the winners. And I am the chief of surgery." He pulled out his phone. He had stopped the recording the moment Elias successfully tied the suture. He deleted the video. Delete, confirm. The evidence of his cowardice was gone. Now, only his word remained against the word of a janitor and a nurse. He walked out of the bathroom and found the White House press secretary, a frantic woman named Miss Harper, pacing the hallway. "Miss Harper," Sterling said, putting on his best TV doctor voice, "the president is stable. We have moved him to the ICU." "Thank God," Harper exhaled. "The press is screaming for a statement." "Who did the surgery?" "Was it you?" Sterling hesitated for a fraction of a second. "It was." A complex situation, Sterling said smoothly. I led the team. We had to perform an emergency pericardial window with a vascular repair. It was touch and go, but I managed to stabilize him. You saved the president, Harper said, her eyes widening. Doctor, you're a hero. I just did my job, Sterling said with false modesty. But listen, there was a security breach. A member of the custodial staff, a janitor. He forced his way into the OR during the procedure. He was mentally unstable. Disturbed the sterile field. What? Harper looked horrified. Did he hurt the president? No, security subdued him, Sterling lied. But, for the president's safety and the hospital's reputation, that man needs to be removed. Immediately. If the press finds out a janitor was in the room, it will be a national security scandal. Harper nodded furiously. I'll handle it. We'll have him detained and gagged. No one talks to him. Sterling smiled. Excellent. Now, shall we go talk to the cameras? Deep in the bowels of the hospital, in a windowless security office, Elias sat on a metal chair. He was still wearing the bloody scrubs. His hands were not cuffed, but a Secret Service agent stood at the door, blocking the exit. Nurse Vivian sat next to him, holding a cup of lukewarm water. She was shaking. They can't keep us here, Elias, Vivian whispered angrily. You saved him. You're a hero. I am a liability, Miss Vivian, Elias said calmly. He stared at his hands, hands that had just touched the heart of the most powerful man on earth. Power does not like to owe a debt to the powerless. The door opened. Agent Miller, the lead Secret Service agent from the OR, walked in. He wasn't holding a gun anymore, he was holding a thick file folder. He sat down across from Elias. He threw the file on the table. It slid across the metal surface and hit Elias's arm. We ran your prints, Miller said. His voice was hard, unreadable. Standard procedure for anyone who touches the president. We expected a hit for petty theft. Maybe an expired visa. Miller opened the file. Imagine my surprise, Miller continued, when the database flagged you as a ghost. Vivian leaned forward. What does that mean? Miller looked at Elias. It means he doesn't exist. Elias Thorne, the janitor at St. Jude's, was created 3 years ago. Fake social security, fake passport. Very high quality. CIA quality. Miller leaned in. Who are you? And don't lie to me. Elias took off his glasses. He rubbed his tired eyes. The posture of the submissive janitor evaporated. He sat up straight, his shoulders broad. My name is Dr. Elias Coven, he said. His voice filled the small room. Former Minister of Health and Surgeon General of the Republic of Redacted. Vivian gasped. She covered her mouth. Miller didn't blink. He tapped the file. The Republic? That's a long way from here, Doctor. The State Department says Dr. Coven died in a car accident 4 years ago, along with his family. My family is alive, Elias said, his voice turning fierce. I faked the accident. I had to. Why? Miller asked. Because I found the money, Elias said. The Western aid package, $50 million, meant for vaccines and ventilators. The president of my country, he used it to buy weapons. When I threatened to go to the UN, they put a bomb in my car. I got my wife and daughters out. We ran. We came here. I became Elias the janitor because a dead man cannot testify. He looked Miller in the eye. I scrub floors to stay invisible, Agent. Today, I made a mistake. I became visible. Miller looked at the file, then at the man. He saw the truth. This wasn't an assassin. This was a man of immense honor who had sacrificed everything for his integrity. The door banged open. Dr. Sterling stormed in, flanked by 2 hospital security guards and Miss Harper, the press secretary. There he is, Sterling pointed at Elias. Arrest him. He practiced medicine without a license. He assaulted me in the OR. Miss Harper looked at Agent Miller. Agent, get this man out of here. The NYPD is waiting at the loading dock. We need him gone before the press conference starts. Vivian jumped up. You're lying. He saved the president. Sterling froze. He was going to let him die. She's his accomplice, Sterling sneered. She's been sleeping with him. Disgusting. Fire her too. That is enough. Elias stood up. He didn't look at Sterling. He looked at Miss Harper. I will go. I do not want trouble. Just do not deport my family, please. Sterling grinned. Oh, you're definitely getting deported. After you serve 10 years for assault. Handcuff him, Sterling ordered the guards. The guards stepped forward. Stand down. The command came from the doorway. It was quiet, but it carried more weight than a gunshot. Everyone turned. The First Lady, Margaret Hayes, stood in the doorway. She was still wearing the dress stained with her husband's blood. Her eyes were red from crying, but her jaw was set in stone. Mrs. Hayes, Sterling stammered, his face pale. You shouldn't be down here. We are just handling the trash. The First Lady walked into the room. The guards parted like the Red Sea. She walked past Sterling as if he didn't exist. She walked straight to Elias. She looked at the janitor in the bloody scrubs. My husband woke up, she said softly. The room went silent. He is groggy, the First Lady continued. But he asked me a question. He asked, who held my heart? She turned slowly to face Dr. Sterling. The look she gave him could have frozen the sun. I told him it was the chief of surgery, she said. Sterling puffed out his chest, relief washing over him. Thank you, ma'am. I only did what was. But then, the First Lady interrupted, her voice turning razor sharp. I remembered something. I remembered the chief of surgery standing in the corner, recording on his phone, while another man held the scalpel. Sterling choked. Ma'am. Agent Miller, the First Lady said. Did you secure Dr. Sterling's phone? Found clam. I deleted the video, Sterling blurted out. The silence that followed was deafening. Sterling realized too late what he had admitted. Agent Miller smiled, a shark-like smile. You deleted evidence from a crime scene involving the president? That's a felony, Doctor. Obstruction of justice. No, I meant. Sterling backed up, hitting the wall. The First Lady turned back to Elias. Dr. Coven, she said, using his real name. Agent Miller briefed me on your file while I was in recovery. Elias bowed his head. I am sorry, ma'am. I caused trouble. Trouble? The First Lady shook her head. She reached out and took Elias's rough, calloused hand in hers. You saved the life of the President of the United States. You are not a janitor, Doctor, and you are certainly not a criminal. She turned to Miss Harper, the press secretary. Miss Harper, the First Lady commanded, cancel Dr. Sterling's press conference. Yes, ma'am, Harper said, glaring at Sterling. Who should we send out? The First Lady smiled. Get Dr. Coven a suit, she said. A blue one. And get Nurse Vivian a blazer. They are going to brief the nation. 10 minutes later, the transformation was complete. Elias stood in front of a mirror in the doctor's lounge. He was wearing a suit borrowed from the hospital administrator. It fit him perfectly. He adjusted the tie. Vivian stood behind him, brushing lint off his shoulder. You look like a surgeon general, she whispered, tears in her eyes. I feel like an imposter, Elias admitted. The world thinks I am dead, Vivian. The world needs to know you're alive, she said. The door opened. Agent Miller stuck his head in. It's time, Doctor. The podium is ready. Elias walked out into the hallway. As he walked toward the lobby, he passed a pair of security guards escorting a man in handcuffs. It was Dr. Sterling. Sterling looked up. He was stripped of his white coat. His tie was undone. He looked broken. He saw Elias in the suit. The janitor was gone. The king had returned. Sterling opened his mouth to speak, to curse, to beg, but no words came out. He just hung his head as the guards dragged him toward the back exit. Elias didn't stop. He didn't gloat. He didn't even look back. He had saved the patient. The disease had been removed. That was all that mattered. He reached the double doors of the lobby. Beyond them, the flashbulbs of 100 cameras popped like lightning. The First Lady was waiting for him. She offered him her arm. Ready, Doctor? She asked. Elias thought of his wife. He thought of his daughters. He thought of the mop bucket he had left in the He straightened his back. He put on his glasses. I am ready, Elias said. The doors swung open. Elias Coven stepped into the light. The flashbulbs were blinding. Elias stood behind the podium with the presidential seal. He blinked, his eyes adjusting to the sea of reporters. To his right stood the First Lady, to his left, Nurse Vivian. For a moment, he felt the old fear, the instinct to hide, to shrink, to be invisible. But then he looked at the red light of the cameras. This signal was being beamed around the world. It would reach the Republic. It would reach the corrupt men who had exiled him. He leaned into the microphone. "My name is Dr. Elias Coven," he began, his voice steady. "For 3 years, I have served this hospital as a janitor. I have cleaned your floors. I have emptied your trash. I have watched you save lives, and I have watched you lose them." He paused. "Tonight, I was asked to step in because the system failed. The president's life was saved not by a title, or an expensive suit, or a press release. It was saved by a basic principle of medicine, primum non nocere. First, do no harm." A reporter from CNN shouted, "Doctor, is it true that Chief of Surgery, Dr. Sterling, attempted to transfer the president while he was unstable?" Elias looked at the camera. He could have destroyed Sterling right there. He could have detailed the cowardice, the panic, the deleted video. But Elias was not a small man. Dr. Sterling was overwhelmed by the moment. Elias said diplomatically, "Medicine is not about one man, it is about the team. Tonight, the hands that held the scalpel were mine. But the courage to act came from Nurse Vivian." He gestured to Vivian. She stepped forward, blushing as the cameras turned to her. "She risked her career to advocate for the patient," Elias said. "She is the true heart of Street Judes." The room erupted in applause. In the back of the room, flanked by security, Miss Harper, the press secretary, leaned over to Agent Miller. "Get the immigration department on the line," she whispered. "I want Dr. Kovan's file stamped National Interest Waiver by morning. He isn't going anywhere." 2 weeks later, the sun streamed into the corner office on the top floor of Street Judes. It was a massive room with mahogany furniture and a panoramic view of the city. For the last 2 years, this office had smelled of expensive cologne and ego. It had been cluttered with awards, framed magazine covers, and mirrors. Now it smelled of lemon polish and fresh air. The mirrors were gone, the walls were bare, except for a simple diploma from the University of the Republic. Elias sat behind the desk. He wasn't wearing a grey jumpsuit. He was wearing a white coat with his name embroidered in blue thread. Dr. Elias Coven, Chief of Surgery. There was a knock on the door. "Come in," Elias said. The door opened. It was Vivian. She was wearing a new badge, head trauma nurse. "Dr. Coven," she smiled. "Your 10 a.m. is here. Send him in." Vivian stepped aside. Richard Sterling walked in. He looked like a ghost of his former self. He hadn't shaved in days. He was wearing jeans and a wrinkled shirt. He held a cardboard box filled with personal items, the debris of a ruined career. Sterling didn't look at Elias. He looked at the floor. "I came to get my things," Sterling mumbled. "Security said I needed your sign-off to clear the building." Elias stood up. He walked around the desk. "Your license has been suspended pending the investigation," Elias said calmly. "The board is reviewing your cases. It seems the gastritis boy from 2 weeks ago wasn't the only misdiagnosis you made." Sterling winced. I was busy. I had administrative duties." "You were busy being famous," Elias corrected, "and you forgot how to be a doctor." Sterling looked up, a flash of his old anger returning. "You think you won, don't you? You think you're better than me because you got lucky with one stitch." "I am not better than you, Richard," Elias said. "I am just awake. You have been asleep at the wheel for a long time." Elias picked up a piece of paper from his desk. He signed it. "Here," Elias handed him the clearance form. "You are free to go." Sterling grabbed the paper. He turned to leave, desperate to escape the humiliation. "One more thing," Elias said. Sterling stopped at the door. "What?" Elias walked over to the corner of the office. He picked up something that had been leaning against the wall. It was a grey mop bucket. "And a mop." Elias held it out. "The night shift is short-staffed," Elias said, his face perfectly serious. "If you want to learn humility." If you want to remember what it means to serve this hospital from the ground up, the job is yours. Minimum wage. No interviews. Sterling stared at the mop. His face turned purple. He looked at Elias, then at the mop, then back at Elias. He spat on the floor. "Go to hell, janitor," Sterling hissed. He stormed out, slamming the door. Elias watched him go. He shook his head. "Some stains," Elias whispered, "can never be cleaned." Elias walked back to his desk. He picked up a file. He had work to do. He had to review the resident schedules, approve the new budget, and fix the broken culture of the ER. The intercom on his desk buzzed. "Dr. Coven?" Vivian's voice. "Yes, Vivian. There is. A delivery for you, in the lobby. VIP transport." Elias frowned. "I didn't order anything." "Send it back." "I don't think you want to send this back, Doctor," Vivian said, her voice thick with emotion. "You should come down." Elias sighed. He took off his reading glasses. He walked out of the office and took the elevator down to the main floor. The lobby of St. Jude's was busy. Doctors, nurses, and patients moved in a chaotic dance. But as the elevator doors opened, Elias saw a circle of silence near the main entrance. 2 Secret Service agents stood guard. Between them stood 3 people. A woman in a modest dress, clutching a handbag, looking terrified and hopeful, and 2 teenage girls holding onto her arms. Elias froze. The air left his lungs. He grabbed the railing of the reception desk to keep from falling. "Amara?" he whispered. The woman turned. She saw the man in the white coat. She saw the name tag. She saw the respect in the eyes of the staff around him. She let out a cry that broke the hearts of everyone who heard it. "Elias!" She ran. He ran. They collided in the center of the lobby. Elias fell to his knees, pulling her down with him. He buried his face in her neck, smelling the scent of home spices and rain and memory. "I thought I would never see you," he sobbed, the great surgeon reduced to a weeping husband. "I am sorry. I am so sorry I left you." "You didn't leave us," Amara cried, holding his face. "You saved us. The Americans. They came to the house. They said the president sent a plane. They said you were a hero." His daughters ran to him. "Baba! Baba!" Elias gathered them all into his arms. The ghost of St. Jude's was gone. The exile was over. From the balcony on the 2nd floor, Nurse Vivian watched them, tears streaming down her face. She took out her phone and snapped a picture. She texted it to the staff group chat with a single caption, "The king is home." 6 months later. The operating room was quiet. The rhythmic beeping of the monitor was the only sound. "Scalpel," Elias said. A young resident handed it to him. "Scalpel, doctor." Elias looked at the open chest cavity. It was a complex bypass, routine for him, terrifying for anyone else. "Retractor," Elias ordered. He looked up. Across the table, the new surgical intern was shaking. He was terrified of making a mistake. Elias paused. He remembered the rooftop. "Dr. Patel," Elias said softly. The intern jumped. "Yes, Chief?" "Look at the heart," Elias said. "Do not look at the textbook. Think of the plumbing. The blood wants to go home. We are just opening the gate." The intern blinked. He took a deep breath. His shoulders dropped. Elias smiled behind his mask. "Good," Elias said. "Now, let's fix the pipes." He made the incision. Outside the window, the sun was setting over the city, and somewhere in the distance, Richard Sterling was arguing with a manager at a used car dealership about his commission check. But inside St. Jude's, the floors were clean, the patients were safe, and the janitor was exactly where he belonged, holding the heart of the world in his hands.